Well, good morning or good day wherever you are. My name is Kurt, and this video is my Good Life meditation video. It's kind of morphed into a kind of a journal video, and as well as a remembrance of my peculiar personal creed that I call the Good Life. I was thinking about that yesterday. How the first part of this video has become more of a journal than anything else, which I like. I like that idea a lot. I do this every day initially I started this out to remember my life objectives and principles, to recite them. I used to do this just in my head, and then I used to do it out loud in my motorcycle helmet when I would ride to work, when commuting. And then later it became something that I started doing like this, and now it's become what it is. So first I talk about yesterday, see how I did yesterday, including last night. Then I'll talk about my Good Life creed. I'll go over each item individually, talk about each item, and then I'll plan for today. So first, yesterday, significant day. Former Prime Minister, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was shot. I think he died. So I haven't quite. I am very careful not to do anything. I do this video first, but I did glance at my phone and I saw a message from a friend of mine in Japan who noted that simply saying that he announced death. So I imagine that must have been the Prime Minister that died. I haven't checked. Well, what a tragedy. Relative to that, all these other details don't seem very significant, do they? It's like, what do you say about, having a bad night's sleep relative to this assassination? But, I didn't sleep well, as per usual. Pretty bad last night, maybe 2 hours before the alarm went off. And I was reading a blog yesterday about how common that is now. How many people are burned out, and so insomnia is one of the articles. The blog specifically called out insomnia, which I don't know if that counts. Getting up early, but interesting. So many of the people I talked to expressed the same. I don't remember it being like this before the pandemic. I don't remember ever, and my job really hasn't changed much since then. In fact, I'd say it's probably easier than it used to be. Yumiko and I, it's become kind of a routine in the evening to talk about, going back to Japan, to think about where we could live. And we found a good house yesterday, about 11 kilometers outside of Shizuoka, from downtown, up the Abe River Valley, across the river, in a tea village, an area that I've been to maybe 3 times. I've actually wandered around that village a little bit, and it was a nice little house. We'll call it the tea village house. I think it was like about $50,000. So with taxes and everything, it would probably be more like 60,000. That one had promise. Okay. So otherwise, yesterday was a full day. Real full day of work. My goodness. Didn't even get a chance to take a break. Didn't even get a chance to do yoga. I usually do have a break in the morning and a break in the afternoon. I didn't get either of them, so I couldn't squeeze my yoga in. That makes a difference. Today is a Friday on. I do have one meeting at least. It's a grind. This meeting this morning might be problematic. That's what I was up worrying about. Although it's funny, when I'm just laying there in bed tossing and turning before the alarm goes off, it's not like I'm thinking about any particular thing. It's just this this blanket of anxiety. It's like a blanket laying across me, and my thoughts go here and there, and I can't sleep. And I'm tired. I should have a sip of my coffee. I made it extra full this morning. You can probably see the top of it right there. 12 ounces. That's a lot of coffee for me. But let's do this. Let's do the good life. My 7 objectives and 30 principles, as follows. My first objective is to always be ready to die. Just to have my life in a good, sound, settled state with my papers, my affairs, my bank accounts, in good order. Also my relationships with my family, my friends, my neighbors. Also my personal life's mission, in short, my writing of Going Alone, which is done, except for little bits and pieces of editing that I do once in a while when I spot something. Well, I really don't spot anything. It's just that something comes up and I realize I can move something around or something, but it's largely done. I should be making more endeavor towards the propaganda of the thing, sharing of it. I should. Number 2, the second objective, is to make good use of my time, and effective use of my time. To make sure that my days are well spent, not wasted, not frittering them away. I wish I was reading more. I do a lot of reading, but I kind of reached a difficult bit. This one book that I'm reading right here, the Collected Works of Samuel Johnson, first volume and 12 volumes. It's turning out it's problematic. I've made it that far so far, but it's problematic because it's almost 200 years old. Every time I open it, it's cracking along the edge here. So I got some book leather, and I put the book leather on it, I'm letting it set right now. But every time I read it, I only want to open it so far because I don't want to damage the book, but I want to read the content. So that's turned out to be a challenge. And then the other book I'm reading right now, the Norton Anthology of American Literature, I'm in a tricky bit. It's hard. It's just a hard bit to read, so I've been stopping. I am reading my other book, Desert Oracle, which I'm really enjoying. Just stories from the desert. That one's going better, but I need to get back on my heavier books. It's the heavy reading that I really get the most out of. Light reading is like watching TV in a way. The next objective is to develop and maintain good life objectives and principles, which are these 7 and 30 that I'm talking about now. And this effort is that effort to do that. The next objective is to cultivate good emotional reactions so that I'm doing well reacting to things. Boy, yesterday was a good one on that. I had two incidents where people around me were getting emotional. That's the best word I can come up with. Maybe I should take more effort to describe that better. People around me were letting their speech, letting their words run away with their emotions, being driven by their emotions. You do that when you talk too much, or it's like an indulgence in a way. It's like a bartender setting out a round of shots, just saying, "Well, the hell with it, going for it," rather than say, "Wait, that looks interesting. I'm not a drinker, but I can't. I just don't." That image came to mind. Maybe if you like whiskey shots, it's like, nah. I know the consequences of this are. I'm not going to do that. Maybe one. I'm not even taking one. Now, I could be perceived as disinterested, or maybe non-engaged, or perhaps even stupid. Maybe not getting it, not engaging in. It's like the experience that I was having yesterday was it's like war drums, right? I That's a really good example. That's a really good illustration of what it was, because it was like war drums. It's a case where as a customer, I'm talking about work. We're not very pleased with the vendor, so let's get out the war drums and get ready to go to war. Well, maybe that's the right way to do it. It may be. I mean, has the feeling, doesn't have the right feel, but maybe if the customers, if the vendor is, the war drums seem to be, the perception of others is and I'm probably trespassing too deeply into work. I should back off. Yeah. Gossip. It's not gossip per se, but it's not right to talk about my work that way. Let me just say, as I'm doing now, this is becoming more of a part of my character to catch myself. Exactly. I just did it right there. Right? Catch myself before I run away with an idea, publicly, verbally. Say, wait. Stop. Think. Don't talk. I think I can attribute this emerging characteristic to what I'm doing now. This good life meditation has a deep and resounding impact. I've changed a lot in the last few years as a result of this. This is one of them, and it's a good change. All right, the next objective is to perform good actions, to do good things. It's not hard to, I don't have to elaborate too much, pick up litter, hold the door for someone, whisper a kind word, whatever it is. Next is to recognize my true limits and my true opportunities so that I'm being reasonable in my expectations and my efforts. Then next is to do just one thing at a time, and to do whatever that is slowly and deliberately. I do that for the most part, especially at work. It's pretty rare to see me multitask anymore. I like that measured feel. Take a breath. Okay, now my 30 principles. These are as follows. Number 1 is the principle of war. An effort to fight against the things that I think, any candidate for truth and anything that I already hold as true. I want to fight against them because I don't want to take them for granted as so. And I do that by maintaining which is the next principle, a reasonable mindset, one of skepticism, objectivity, and honesty. It's a frame of mind for looking at the world. A critical, skeptical, objective frame of mind. Treasuring honesty with myself and others. Third principle is the homunculus, the suggestion that I don't have a soul, but I do have a consciousness. The fourth principle is called the Anchorhold, which is the idea that this consciousness is trapped within me. I like to use the imagery of a man or a woman standing on a rock in a sea, with a rock just sticking out from the sea, and the waves are crashing all around, and the tide comes up and down. And as the water's dangerous, and as the water gets closer, we get anxious and scared. And as the water recedes, we relax. That's how the tide of the day is, right? I mean, I'm anxious now. It's going to be a tough morning because I'm anxious in the morning before work. The full day is ahead of me of meetings and challenges that I have yet to face, and I always seem to get through it, but it comes at a great expense. It's like squeezing me squeezing a sponge, wringing a sponge every time. That's only a partially good example, because it's far more than that. It's like spending capital in a sense. You know, the capital of my being, the capital of my life. That's a good way to describe it. Spending life like capital. That's exactly what it's like. It's like having an investment portfolio, you know, and it accrues in a way, or maybe it doesn't. You don't get more life necessarily. You spend it, and the life energies. That's a good way. It sounds hippy dippy, but the life energy that I spend on my job, depletes the capital reserves that I've got, and I know that now. When I was younger, I didn't perceive that. I had this idea that the reserves were bottomless. I knew they weren't, but I had this idea, and now I'm disabused of that idea. I know that they're not. I can see it on my death calendar up there, how little I have left. And gosh damn, it's like I'm so done with, using those reserves at work. But I've got to get my daughter through college. And then after that, I have to get Yumiko and I settled. Or together, she and I have to do that. Yumiko and I have to do both of those things, and we will. So, but the end, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, as long as we stay healthy. Okay, the last objective is to do just one thing at a time, and to do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully. Okay, now the next principle is the principle of purpose. No, I got mixed up, didn't I? I said one thing at a time. That's an objective. The next principle after the Anchorhold, the Homunculus and the Anchorhold kind of go together. The next principle is purpose. And my purpose in life is threefold. One is to be a good husband and father. That's one. Two is to be a virtuous human being, where virtue I define as being the pursuit of the well-being of thinking creatures in particular, but as many creatures as I can. And then three is the pursuit of my own personal mission, which is, again, the sharing of my book, Going Alone. So that working on my mission contributes to both my purpose and what constitutes a well-lived life. It's a purpose and an objective. That was what I mean to say. To that end, why don't I spend more time on that? Well, I guess I do in a way. I guess at this point, it's all about living the creed. That's another good one right there. Right? That's what I'm doing right now, making this video, living my life. Sure, I'm not hawking my book at the corner. Maybe I should do that more. But it's there. It's a reference point for anybody that might be interested. And yeah, maybe nobody's interested, but it's there nonetheless. It's my story. Okay, next is the atomic principle. Everything is little bits and pieces, atoms and molecules. And all of those things, everything is basically is subject to fall to pieces, as you do. Next comes the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature. It's good to recognize what that is, like including work, and the people I work with, and the contracts that I work to pursue. Next comes a pirate ride. I'm not enunciating well. Next comes a principle called the pirate ride, which is just a suggestion that free will isn't free. It's an illusion. Maybe there's some kernel of freedom in there. I haven't been able to tease that out. But I think that the decisions that we make are the result of the circumstances and the precedents that led up to that moment, the inertia of the universe. We are just decision engines, acting on impulse and leaning in the direction of least resistance. Our decisions are basically like a lot like water flowing down a hill. The river doesn't decide to make a left turn, to bank to the left, or go over a rock, or or gurgle over a rock. It does so because it's impelled by forces of nature. We are just far more complex. Maybe I don't know how much more complex. We seem to be a lot more complex examples of a river flowing. I think I've stumbled across a nice example there. I like that river bit. Might keep that. Next is maturity and the sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude, which is how we grow. And avoid repeating mistakes. Next comes the social principle. We human beings need others. We need each other. We need to be social. It's good to have a spouse and a family, children, a home, connections, a village. Next comes public speaking. The suggestion to be very careful about how I speak, to use my words carefully and deliberately, and to not be highfalutin, but to be clear and sincere in my communication, deliberate, husbanding my words well. Next comes temperance, a reminder to be circumspect in my consumption, to consider what I'm eating and drinking and how I'm working and playing, and how I'm using my minutes and days and hours. Careful in that regard. Next comes, and there's 3 sub-principles, actually 4 sub-principles. I think the 4th one belongs there. The sub-principles of temperance are suffering, because we suffer when we tell ourselves no. Simplicity, because a simple life is a temperate life. And apathy, which is our ability to disconnect from the things that are outside of our control. And then I also want to put prudence somewhere, but maybe here, I'm not sure. Prudence being, again, a careful decision about all things. Careful. It's careful deciding. Okay, next is the horror show. Life is a pretty frightening, terrible place. A horror show, in fact. And I want to remember that. Because the horror is happening all around me, up and down the street. There's horror happening everywhere, maybe in your life. And the horror, if not, although sometimes in the early morning hours it feels like horror. If not that, it's coming for me in earnest. It's coming for all of us. Next comes that which must be borne is the next principle. And what must be borne is the fact and the consequence of the horror show. Also, we have to bear whatever responsibilities we've taken on or commitments we've made. Like I took on the responsibility when I had a child to see her through to adulthood successfully. And we're continuing to do that. We're almost there, about another 2 years left, and she'll be out on her own for college. That doesn't mean my responsibilities end there, but the main part where my life's day-to-day engagement towards her, towards the end of getting her to an adulthood of her own, that part will largely cease, and I can focus on other things. Still be her dad, still be my wife's husband, but I can take a breath and maybe even retire. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, that which must be born. Next is the Feast of Offal, which is something that the feast is what we do when we consume the upset of others, when others blow out their upset publicly, and then we consume that, which is kind of what I felt like was happening a little bit yesterday. There was a little bit of that going on at work, and I was not consuming it, and I was not engaging in it. It may look like I'm distant and aloof in that capacity, but I don't do that anymore. And because I do this every day, it's very clear when that's happening. I can see when someone else is engaging and sharing the feast. They're looking for diners. Here, have a leg lamb. Have a leg of lamb. No, thank you. I'll just nibble a bit of bread here. You can appear a little bit unsocial or disengaged to those that want you to join the feast, but some of these feasts are not healthy, especially when they involve gossip or anger or upset or, there's, especially at work. I mean, we're humans, we're allowed some reasonable upset, yet there's a more mature way. Next comes two principles that go together: distraction and then agency in the great indifference. Distraction is what we do when we try to not see that God doesn't exist, which is the apprehension of the great indifference, the great emptiness that pervades the universe. And we distract ourselves through so many means. These little devices, our phones, are great distractions, but we do it also through our work and our play and news and gossip, family, movies, music, TV, religion. All of it is a very effective distraction to a frightening reality that we live in a universe where there's seemingly center stage for the horror show, and there's no one in control, and there's no one to mitigate, and no one to ease our suffering or to reward us with an eternity of bliss. That's a little more than most of us want to face, including me. It scares the crap out of me too, but I don't want to hide and cower. I know people that do this don't think of themselves as hiding and cowering because they think they're right. From this perspective, from my vantage point, it's turning away, it's turning your back to the emptiness, to warm your hands at the flame of life. It's not bad, it's not real. It's real, but it's not that thing behind you, or that nothing behind you, which appears to be real too. Shivers. Next comes the best seat in the house, a reminder to try to be happy with who I am, where I am, and what I am. And then comes the Path of Wildness, which is a trick to move from one life to another. It's the transition between lives by deciding I'm going to do something else. Like my wife and I are going to go back to Japan, collecting the facts, deciding when we're going to do it or what the criteria is for doing it, when we're going to do it, how we're going to do it, etc. And then making a decision. I think our decision is made. It's funny, this decision is kind of snuck up on us more than, past when we've made these decisions, we've actually had a moment of making the decision. Yep, we're going to do it. And together, Yumiko and I make that decision. This one is more just, it's like deciding to flee a burning building. Not that my life is a burning building, but I'm exhausted and I'm tired, and if in that capacity, I'm burnt. She's burnt. We're burnt out. And to flee the burning building is not something you make a decision at so much. It's just something you do. And that's what we're doing. Turns out it's going to take us two to 4 years to get out of this building. That's a good summary to put it, Kurt. It is going to take 2 to 4 years. I keep making these posts on social media. Hey, we found this great house, and you know, people respond. You know, buy it, great, it's perfect. You know, that's not where we're at. We're still 2 to 4 years out. This is dreaming. This is, hey, this would be great to go to Hawaii at the end of next year. Look at these pictures. Yeah, go for it. Well, it's not going to happen now, but this would be a great resort to stay at, wouldn't it? Because in part, this is what we need, right? This is part of what it is to get through the day-to-day, is to have the dream of the next thing, something to look forward to. It is, although it's also kind of a bittersweet hope. And it's also kind of tempered by the fact that I know that it doesn't make a crap of difference. Although I think this time it might. Not working, or at least not working full-time, or at least not working as a professional, might make a big difference, right? Because it's the work that I do now that just churns my brain out. It's like an ice cream scoop in my brain, just scooping me out. You know, when I was an English teacher in Japan, I felt like I was driven nuts by the tedium and lack of fulfillment in the job. That's a different thing. I would gladly trade that for what I've experienced now. And I won't forget. That's for sure. Every time I go through these transitions in life, and I in a sense kind of get back to, because it seems to be kind of a ping pong thing. I keep going back and forth. Every time I go back to a circumstance that I knew before that seemed to be hard, it's less hard because I have the perspective of what the alternative is like, right? I thought that coming to America would be great, and it has been great. We've fulfilled our goals, right? We made an American out of Emily, and we were able to, basically make ourselves more secure. The big one, of course, being able to secure a pension for our retirement, which I would not have been able to do if we'd stayed in Japan. 10 plus years of hard working in a unionized shop, but with a good salary and a great pension scheme, it's going to have a huge impact on our lives. I mean, it's basically going to provide the paycheck that's going to see us through our retirement for the rest of our lives. This was a great thing to come back to do. But if I was to even go back to Japan, to the exact life I had before, go back to the same job working as an ALT, I don't think I would ever feel the tedium or the restlessness that I felt before. I'd be like, every day I'd be like, wow, I get to do this, Sure, I would probably wouldn't like the rainy days standing out, in front of the kids, in front of the school, getting all wet, reading to kids. Even that was fun. It would be fun, compared to this, yeah. So, the ping pong match gets better every time the ball goes back across. Coming to America was the best decision we could have made. Wow, best decision. It just has cleared the deck. It's made our lives better. It's made Emily into who she is. And just to linger on this one more time, a second. Like, I came back, I was working in the same job, practically the same group, almost the same position before I went to Ventura. And it was like, it was dragging. Then I went to Ventura, and then I came back. It's a hard job still, but I'm eminently grateful, and I'm happy to do it. Having that experience of going to Ventura did something to me, changed my perspective about my job, and I know that's not going to change. That's permanent. Doesn't mean my job is less hard. It doesn't mean doesn't mean that the ice cream scoop isn't scooping my brain out, but it is. But at least I'm not. It's not satisfied. And when we go back to Japan, I will be satisfied. Okay, I think I've said enough on that. Okay, and it's that need, it's that wholesale. That's what I was talking about, the path of wildness. This principle, I got started talking about that. It's getting on the path of wildness and making that transition into a new life that sets the stage for that reset and that new perspective and attitude. It's a very good thing, if not to do for its own sake, but for the secondary consequences that are a result. Next is the risk of avoiding risk. No, is that right? Yeah. The surface level risks of life are education, career, home, family, and security. The deep level risk is taking time to have an adventure to find yourself. It's tough to do both. I recommend taking the adventure early in life and then coming back and then setting up for the surface level risks, to get that career and family, etc., the home, all that stuff. Don't forget about retirement, because you don't want to get to be my age and be in a position where you can't stop working. That would be a despair. That would be tough. Okay, next is sin and damnation. There are 7 sins in my worldview. These relate to being untrue, believing things that are maybe untrue, and gossiping. Falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, dogma, authority, and gossip are them in particular. You can read about them in my book if you want to get the particulars of those. Next is, and the consequence is damnation. If you indulge in any of these sins, it's because there's no damnation after life. There's nothing after life. Next is complete oblivion. Like I said, nothing to follow after life. No soul, no God, no heaven, no hell. Just this life that we have now, and oblivion awaits. And this time it's for good. So we won't see our loved ones again after death. We won't have a chance to reconcile any differences, and we won't see justice served. So we'll look after those things now in the one life we get. Next is the great life adventure. That's an experience that we can have that forms the nucleus of our identity. Yumiko and I have had 4 great life adventures, and each of those has added a deep and penetrating layer and a veneer onto our life that kind of colors and gives us ourselves a glossy shine. And you can't get that shine in some ways without the adventure. So it's good to have a great life adventure. And the way to get to the adventure is to step upon the path of wildness. Next is the season of philosophy, which is a time to record what we've learned along the way and to be ready to jot that down, to write your story. And then next is the bullseye aim, just a reminder that in all things we strive to hit a particular bullseye, a mark, but we usually miss. It's pretty rare that we get the squared on target. Usually we miss by some degree, sometimes altogether. It's just the way it goes. Keep trying. Okay, next is uphill climb. It's a good day when it's been a tough day, when I've been climbing. It's not a good day if I've been sitting on my butt all day, especially if I've been sitting on my butt all day doing nothing. Just filling my brain with filler, watching TV, reading, pulp, or just sleeping all day. There's some value in there's some value in some of these things. Watching TV and having fun is good if it's pleasurable, right? So there's that, and sleeping has lots of benefits too, and reading pulp is again kind of an entertaining distraction. But to me, I've got to be climbing. That's not climbing. Climbing means deciding to read a book that's chock full of value and wisdom, and threatens to fall to pieces every time I try to creak the pages open, and to find a strategy to preserve that volume and to get that experience, get that reading and that wisdom out and into my head. That's an uphill climb. That's how I want to live my days, even after retirement, retirement won't be a lounge for me. Retirement will be just more time to climb higher, have more great life adventures. I'm really encouraged, by the way. My wife keeps on encouraging me to become softy papa again. She's like, when we get back to Japan, you need to go out and get your camera, get out there, do your thing. Man in Japan, softy papa, walking in Japan, and I will. Okay, next is arena and utility. Life is this arena for the pursuit of our objectives by way of our principles. And then comes two more principles left. The second to last is nothing is enough. A subtle reminder that though there is value in temperance, there is, I almost want to say, holiness in abstinence. That's too strong a word, holiness. There's something almost blessed in denial. I'm far from that point, but I know it's true. Boy, I can dream. The last principle is the principle of fun. A reminder to have fun. I disparaged just a moment ago sitting on the sofa and watching TV. I don't mean it in that way. There are times to have fun. And sitting on the sofa watching TV, especially if you can share that with your companion, a good laugh, something just fluff, that's good. In fact, it's kind of the pointy end of the spear. The hard work is driving the spear forward, and this pointy end is having fun, having exhilaration, wow, for all of life. It's a good thing. It's also good to have a forward-looking apprehension, not apprehension in a bad way, but the good apprehension, right? It's like, I'm excited. Apprehension isn't quite a word. The anticipation of life to come. And then the backwards-looking remembrance and recollection and reminiscence of what was. All of these together, enjoying the moment of now, looking forward to the future, and happily remembering the past, wisely remembering the past, is all part and parcel of the principle of fun. It's a good one to end with, I think, if I do say so myself, and I did. Okay, now let's talk about the day. If you've noticed, I've gone a little long today. That's deliberate because I've got more time. It's my Friday on, and I start work half an hour later than usual, so I use that time here, which is a good use of time, I think. For today, I have only one meeting on the book so far. It's a tricky one, but I think we're going to manage it. It's one we're going to have to decide if we want to, what kind of customer we want to be. Interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I know what the team wants to do. We'll see what the boss wants to do. I do have status reports to do. That takes half a day to do. I'll do work on that. And I have other things I need to do. I need to do some contract review for some detail, but I think I can knock that out in half an hour. And then we have the weekend ahead of us. Yumiko and I have settled into a very nice routine with our weekend. Now that Emily is living back in the dorms, we have to be very careful with our budget. So we've really tightened things up. And I think we're getting more out of life now with this tighter budget than ever before. We're eating out less, just once a weekend, but we're being more targeted in rather than having a gluttonous, ravenous consumption at the weekend. Let's go out to breakfast, then we'll go to lunch, and then we'll go to dinner, and what the hell, and just the money's just flying away. It's like we're going to pick one meal on Sunday, and we're going to go someplace special, and we take turns choosing where that special place is going to be. Last week I chose Idlewild for 4th of July. This Sunday is Yumiko's choice. Let's see what she chooses. I'm looking forward to it. Yumiko and I are really finding ourselves lately as a couple. It's really good to see that as Emily begins to start her solo journey, or more solo journey, Yumiko and I can find ourselves again. That's good. And I'm very excited that she seems to be interested in living in the Japanese countryside. I didn't see that one coming at all. Wow. I mean, the place we were looking at yesterday is right on the border of where I used to do my softy papa thing. Actually, I'm so excited about that house. I would tempted to. I wonder if we could do that. I wonder if Yumiko could apply for a mortgage in Japan, living abroad, and buy the house, given that we're both gainfully employed here. I wonder. something. Okay, I'll stop now. I wish you all the best. I hope you have a good day. I'm going to strive to have a good day. Let's try to have a productive day, upward climb, moving forward with the pointy end of the spear in a position of joy, to enjoy our lives, enjoy our people, and looking forward to a future ahead. Some of you, if not a lot of people see this video, but some of you might be, far away from retirement. There's a lot that can be done along the way. Hopefully you've got the energy and the resiliency to continue to invest. I know it's tough. I can't really recall how I got through it. I suffered a lot. My decade of 30s was a tough decade. Decades of 40s was a tough decade. Early decades of 50s started to get a little easier. Now in the late 60s, I've got anxiety. I can't sleep. I'm restless. I'm tired. But I'm happier. And I think that's going to increase. I hope the same is true for you if you're having a tough time. Be safe, but not too safe.